Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. And sorry for the delay there, but we will get started. So today we have Alex Smith joining us to talk strategy. I've known Alex for many years. I actually went to school with his sister, and they're both very clever, very well read, very bright family, and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Anna was super impressive. She'd always be very whip smart and beautiful, and I'm sure she keeps those boys in aviation on their toes. I was actually just thinking at the weekend, Alex, about the discos and the sleepovers that I've had at your house and or your parents' house rather, and then your sister's.
Fortunately, I was never involved in them.
No, I can't remember you at many of them, but Alex has obviously studied strategy and he's looked at the success of many companies and also their failures, and he's worked out what really works so that he can help his clients make it big, and of course what they need to avoid. He's worked for some really great companies like L'Oreal and EY. And I guess when I think of business strategy, I can't naturally but help but think about my grandparents and the businesses that they had. So between both sets of grandparents, and I don't know how much Alex knows about the business on my mother's side, but across them there were three family businesses. So we had kind of the three Ds: the diamonds, dresses, and drinks. So diamonds and jewelry in Ipswich, which I'm sure Alex knows some history about. And then my grandma in Scotland had a chain of nicely priced women's clothes in Little Beaumont Street in Aberdeen, which had further branches in Ballotta near Balmoral Castle, where she'd take us for picnics, and then some across in Banchory, I think, and or somewhere close to that. And it was a bit like Hobbs, some really like gorgeous, lovely clothes, and it was all under her own name. And then her husband, my grandfather on that side, had several pubs, including like Martin's, which is very well known, and then of course others across the city. I never really met him, but I was like much more immersed in the dinner table conversations that I had with my family in Ipswich. So down there, I was like really blessed to have what I consider the best grandpa imaginable. Like I have some amazing memories of him. He had a well-known chain of jewelry shops across East Anglia, and I guess it's because of him and his introduction to the luxury sector, which is why I'm so passionate about working with clients within that space and those in high-end resi. So I vividly remember like twirling into his shop and scampering upstairs to eat the best chocolate cake. And his business was really his whole life's work. He was the UK member of the European Diamond Board. He was the youngest president of the National Gemological Association. He founded the Jewelry Advisory Council, which was a bit like a PR wing for the jewelry sector. He had his own in-house magazine called Golden Circle, and they stocked amazing designers from like Gucci to Rolex, and then he had his own brand of watches called Croft. So he actually he won this incredible award in New York from the Jewelers of America for his outstanding contribution to industry and leadership throughout the world. Like he broke America, so he was a bit more than just a shopkeeper. Like he took it a bit further. And for someone that dropped out at 14, I think he did very well. Like over the years, my family also contributed to the community. They built a hospital over in Felixstowe that still functions today. And it was a really tough time. Like, the shops have been around since the dawn of time, and the high street is always evolving, so it was always challenging. But they got their business through the 20s recession, then World War II, and then obviously the cyclic depressions that followed. And I guess, when I think about struggling in my business, I always think, oh, what would my grandpa do? And how has he got through these difficult times? And what were the strategies that he used? So without a doubt, like, he's my hero, but I think also my granny was very much an angel. Like, it was the wives that really supported those that were in business. And, he really had her support. She wrote his speeches for him, and she was really like very bright and very hands-on. They had like substantial home help, which obviously helped. But it was really like, how she sort of cared and supported for all of us and everyone. It was incredible what they managed to achieve. The business no longer exists today, but they definitely built a legacy, and all the marketing material, it says, how Croydon's rings really spoke love's own language. And if I'm honest, I think that's what the world could do with a little bit more these days. Obviously, it seems to be burning down, but I think you have to believe love is still there, and that's the answer. And I guess love is a bit of the strategy of my business. We want to do what we love the clients we hire for, and provide for the families of the candidates that we place. I think if there's one thing you learn when you're squashed between three family businesses, it's really that family is first, and that street feeds into our strategy and our approach. We try to look after our team and all row together. And the phrase like "do what you love and do it on purpose," I know is a Dolly Parton quote that Alex has quoted, and we try to do that on purpose. So I think Alex sent an email the other week, if you also received it, about those that inherit from their parents. It might be ridiculous looks, your daddy's contacts, or inherited wealth. And but if you didn't actually get any of these things, you have an unfair advantage about not having them. Now, obviously, despite my grandparents' success, I didn't unfortunately inherit great wealth from them, or my grandpa left me a modest amount of money to travel, which funded my gap year, which was great. But I didn't get sort of these great looks or they're great contacts. Like I work in a completely different industry, but I have the fantastic memories and I stories taught me passion, patience, and importance of hard work. And of course, the family motto was the world is your oyster, which is very cheesy, I know, but I guess it's always fueled my love of travel, which is why I'm really passionate as well about helping clients in the hospitality and hotel sector. So we turned we turned 7 last week, and I think my grandparents would be quite proud. It was actually my grandpa's lucky number, and I've thought about a lot about him this year. But I guess you need to have a bit more of luck than luck to run a business. So on that note, I'll hand you over to Alex, who clearly knows much more about strategy than me.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks. Hi, everyone. So I think there was only like half an hour in the diary. I'm going to go a bit over that, but like I'll get right into it. What I'm here to talk to you about today is business strategy and my whole shtick, really, in my business and what's gotten me an audience and has sold a lot of my books and stuff like that is essentially making strategy much more accessible and practical for people. Because what we're talking about here is the most important part of business, but also that being said, that one of the least understood parts of business, and also part of business which uh, I would say, as we're going to get into, 99% of businesses out there are operating with no strategy at all, which is sort of hard to believe, but I think hopefully I'll prove that to you very quickly. So let me just share the screen. I've got some slides to show you. Now, well, the tech is going to all collapse here, and you can get a glimpse of my messy desktop as well. So that's a real treat for you. So let me get into this. Hopefully you guys can see full screen the 3 secrets of strategy right now. And if anyone can't, then Mary or someone just shout and we'll fix it. So yeah, these 3 secrets of strategy I'm going to lay out to you here, I think are really all you need to know to be ahead of 99% of people in any industry when it comes to understanding and applying good strategy for your business. So we'll begin with just like getting a bit into like what is actually the point of strategy. And I ask you the question, what if I told you that you could 30x your business with pure thought alone, whereby because you make choice B instead of choice A, with the same amount of investment, the same amount of energy, your results are exponentially bigger than they would otherwise have been. Now, intuitively, we all understand that that is true, even if we don't actually necessarily fully engage with that. And that process, making the choice that has the higher returns instead of the choice that has the lower returns, that fundamentally is what strategy is all about. And I think that a lot of people, they underestimate how many choices they make every day in their business and how many different options they have for what path their business could go on. Most people are operating their business basically on rails, almost as if the choices have been predetermined. But the truth is, there's an unlimited variety of things that you could do, some of which are going to yield very good results, and some of which are going to yield very bad results. Now, we could say that, like, okay, so wow, what a fantastic thing. 30x from pure thought alone, no more money or energy investment. Isn't that fantastic? Isn't strategy great? Isn't strategy important? But there's the issue, as I put on this slide, is that it may be very nice and it may be very big and it very important, but nobody actually does it. You know, I have spent my whole career in strategy. Like I said to you before, I will tell you very, very confidently, very, very definitively, like 99% of businesses have got no strategy at all. And in fact, probably about 50% of businesses, they don't even try to have a strategy. They don't even actually have a conversation along the lines of what is our strategy? What is going to give us leverage on the market? So it's not just that they're doing it badly, it's that they aren't even thinking about it. And just to quickly illustrate this, you're not going to have to share anything with me, but I'm going to give you 7 seconds to just write down what is the strategy, the differentiated move that your business is taking, which is going to give it outsized results? What is the strategy of your business? Just, 1 sentence, whatever, just think it in your head or write it down. So I'll just give you a second for that. All right, so that's more than enough time. Because so basically, if you had one, you will have been able to write it down in that time. If you were umming and ahhing a little bit, or you were lost completely, then you just don't have a strategy. And it's because it's as simple as that, because we're talking about the operating principle essentially for the whole business. So it's either very clear and it's the thing that's on the top of your mind, or it's not there at all. But assuming that it wasn't bam, straight there on your mind, don't worry. You're in very good company. You're in the company of the most of the world. So it's not really a big deal. And if you did very quickly put something down, okay, that's great. But then as we go through the principles in this presentation, you can compare what you wrote to what I'm going to go through in order to see if what you put down actually truly is a kind of functional strategy. Because, of course, you've got all those businesses that don't have any strategy at all. And then you've got just as many businesses who have something that they call their strategy, but in fact, it isn't really a strategy at all. Maybe it's a goal or an aspiration or a purpose or all these other things which are not strategies, but people sometimes use the word to describe them. Now, if we want to think about just like, if you want to know what it feels like to not have a strategy, just think about all these very common business forces that people have to face and see, and I don't know, see if any of these chime with you. So first up, very common symptom of not having any strategy is commodification, because a big part of strategy is all about differentiation. If you end up feeling that you are in some way interchangeable with your competitors, or your customers think that, that is a symptom of having no strategy. Equally, having weak demand. Maybe you think you are quite different, but you just can't quite generate the leads that you want, the attention that you want, the flow of commerce that you want. You're not attracting a significant volume of customers. That would also be a symptom. Price pressure is a classic example. If you ever feel that you need to cut prices in order to artificially stimulate demand, that's something that would happen without strategy. And then, of course, because you don't have a very clear sense of focus and about where you're going, you also end up wasting a hell of a lot of money. You blow lots and lots on ineffective projects that kind of go nowhere. And at the end of the year, you say, oh, yeah, that thing that we did over there, that actually didn't really work, did it? And so you end up with quite a lot of regrets. From a leadership perspective, it becomes very hard without that clear focus to know how to galvanize and align your team. And you feel like you're just meandering along, going through the motions. And ultimately, the business stagnates. Very simply, like if you feel that you've reached a kind of ceiling on your growth, and no matter what you do, you can't seem to push through to that next level. You can't push from the 5 to 10 million, from the 10 to 50 million, whatever it might be. Then again, these are all symptoms of lack of strategy. Most people think that all these things I've listed here are natural. Hey, that's just what it's like to run a business. These are just the things that you have to encounter. That's not actually true. It's not. These are symptoms of a business that doesn't have any clear sense of strategic leverage. And believe it or not, there are businesses out there who, don't get me wrong, they have their own problems. It's not like they're without problems, but they don't have those problems. You can escape all of those problems if you get your strategic thinking straight. Now, you might say, well, Alex, if strategy is so bloody brilliant, then why exactly is it not more common and not more sort of well understood? And why are people not, uh, uh, why is everybody sort of not nailing it? By the way, Mary, there are people entering. I don't know if you're admitting them or not, but I can't do it because my cursor has disappeared. Just FYI.
I thought, sorry.
There's a few people dropping in, just in
No
case.
problem.
So yeah, how do we get to a position where there's so little understanding and so little effective application of this discipline? Well, the reason for it, from my perspective, is pretty simple. Like, you've got to think about who are the gatekeepers of strategy. Who are the people who understand strategy, who know the principles, who know how it works? And basically, there's three categories. You've got your big consultancy firms, obviously, your McKinseys and whatever. You've got your academics, your Harvard Business School and all that kind of thing. And there's a lot of MBA programs, all that kind of stuff. And then you've got certain kind of big beast authors like this is Richard Rumel and Michael Porter. Now, I'm not going to criticize any of these institutions. All of them have got fantastic information and fantastic knowledge that Every single chief exec, every single founder on the planet should know what these people know. But they all have one fatal flaw. Because despite the fact that they have all this fantastic knowledge and principles that you badly need to download into your brain, they also share an incentive towards complexity. And if you think about the incentive structures of all these industries, it's all the same. Big consultancy firms are working on the basis of obviously billable hours. You don't want to give the impression to your clients that what you're doing is actually quite simple and they could do themselves. Or even worse, it's something that you could do very, very fast, even though it is something you could do very, very fast. So obviously there are layers of complexity and jargon that are put on top in order to increase the billable hours. If you're in academia, we all know how academia works. You know, why write one page when you could write 100 pages? All the citations and footnotes and all that kind of thing. Again, it incentivizes for complexity. Books. But I've written a book. I know how the publishing industry works. They do not want you to write a 100-page book. They want you to write a 300-page book for various sort of commercial reasons. Like all of this stuff is conspiring against the ordinary chief executive, the ordinary founder, ever actually getting to grips with the fundamentals of this discipline. And this is why you end up with all the, I mean, I don't know what these are just random things I picked off the internet, right? And I'm not remote. Everything here is probably 100% right. And I agree with all of it. But damn it, you're just not going to do this stuff, are you? Like this is not the kind of thing that people are really going to digest and act upon. And so strategy, it's become this joke discipline. And I found this little video that I thought was quite a funny demonstration, I think, of how most of the world thinks of strategy. So it's very short. I'm just going to share it with you because I think it's very indicative of the problem and the barrier that stops this information going out into the hands of people like you who really need it.
For work, I work in strategy. What does that mean? It's funny, people always ask me that. Leading initiatives and identifying opportunities for cross-functional alignment. Last week, for example, I was meeting with our CEO and they were like, hey, our costs are too high. And I was like, hey, we should consider lowering our costs. So we're not the people that do the work, the planning. We don't do the planning either. It's more like thinking about the approach to how we're going to think about the plan. Think about like Apple, right? You have an iPhone. Strategy. Another example would be like Microsoft. Like everyone uses Excel. So that was a really good strategy for them. Or like Dunkin' Donuts, right? America runs on Dunkin'. You get the point. How do we know if what works? Oh, the recommended strategy? We don't. But that's not really the point, right? It's more about the journey.
So yeah, it's kind of like a mess, I think. And I think that connected with that, I think when people think about strategy and what a strategist looks like and how strategy is done, they get an image in their head, something like this geezer here, where they think that it is this like analytical, sort of highly intellectual process. And this is another thing that puts up a barrier to really doing the good work. And it's almost you get people thinking, well, we would do that type of work if we could afford to do it. But all of that, I want to tell you right now, is absolute nonsense. And also, just one second, I just need to shut a door back here because I've got a baby crying and you probably can't hear it, but I can. It's driving me nuts. Hold on.
Sorry, everyone, just bear with us out 1 second.
I am back. Sorry about that.
Keeping it real, Alex.
Oh yeah, I'm keeping it always. So what I want, the first lesson I want to impart to you is instead of thinking about this complex analytical discipline, instead of thinking about this guy, I want you instead to think more about, oh, I'm just going to skip over those. It doesn't really matter. I want you to think about this guy. I don't know if any of you saw Succession, but this is like Logan Roy, the sort of Richard Murdoch-esque sort of like billionaire tyrant from Succession. And when you think about how strategy is really done, this character is a much better example than that analytical character. What we're talking about here is making very clear, very firm decisions, making bold bets where you don't know for sure what the answer is going to be, and acting on them. Another, if you want a real world archetype to picture in your head, maybe think about someone like Richard Branson or someone like that. These are as far as you can get from being data analytics people as possible. What we're talking about here is people with a clear point of view who are prepared to then manifest that point of view in a clear decision. And these points of view, they're not complicated. They're not based on necessarily lots of analysis. They're based on adherence to very, very simple principles. This is not a technical discipline at all. And I think to sort of further illustrate the point, if you think about the greatest strategists in history, the people who have actually done something where the results are there, so we can point to them and we can say, well, like it or not, this person clearly knew what they were doing. One thing these people all had in common is that none of them ever studied strategy. None of them had an MBA. None of them knew anything about all of this kind of like wonkish academic strategy at all. And yet, they happen to be the greatest strategists of all time. Now, it's not possible to become a great doctor without studying medicine. It's not possible to become a great lawyer without studying law. But strategy, you do not need to study strategy to be a great strategist. All you need is the grasp of these basic principles. And I want to just lay them on you right here today. And if you could just like put this stuff into your brain and actually operate on it, then okay, fine. You're maybe not quite in sort of Steve Jobs camp just yet, but you're a hell of a lot closer to it than the average person is. So without further ado, let's get into it. Secret one, the true definition of strategy. So we kind of just need to know what strategy is first. And that is the first place that people obviously often fall over because they, like I said to you before, they call things strategy that are not really a strategy. Typical example is, oh, bloody hell, my computer, it loves doing that. It loves absolutely freaking out. Let me see if I can get back to that. Are we back? Hopefully we're back. I don't know why it does that when I'm on Zoom. It's like it likes to clear its throat and go away. So for example, like something people will often do is they'll say, our strategy is to double our turnover by 2025. And it's like, well, no, obviously that is a goal, not a strategy. The strategy would be whatever the move is you're going to make, which is actually going to make that thing happen. So we need to get very, very clear on what actually is a strategy. Other people have entered the room, Mary. Or anyone who can just admit people, because I can't.
Sorted.
So, thanks. So, what is strategy? Well, I'm going to give you the most simple first principles way of thinking about it. We've all heard of supply and demand, obviously, and we know that this is fundamentally these are the forces that are governing every single business on the planet, whether you're selling friendship bracelets out of your bedroom or whether you're like Halliburton or something, right? What every single business out there is engaged in a battle to do exactly the same thing. And that thing is to lower the supply of what you're selling, by which I mean make it so that you are the only source for that thing possible, and to increase the demand for it. So if we imagine the perfect business, the hypothetical perfect business is a stall selling bottled water in the middle of a desert with a whole bunch of like people who are dying of thirst around you. In that scenario, that is not a very difficult business to run because the supply is completely constrained to you and the demand is insanely high. You can charge whatever the hell you want and it is the perfect business. And that is what we are all with our businesses striving towards. We are all trying to constrain the supply and we are all trying to increase the demand. You do that and then you're just making money hand over fist without any effort. And this is the process of strategy. How can we constrain the supply and how can we increase the demand? Now, there's a more simple way of articulating this where we can put two different words instead of supply and demand, but which mean fundamentally the same thing. And these words are unique value. Unique value. Strategy is the act of trying to generate unique value that you can put out there in the market and that people are going to pay you for. It's value because it's something that people want and are willing to pay for. But just as important, it is unique in that you are the only person selling it, because there's no point in selling something that, yes, people want, but there's a million other people selling it. And then you get into that commodification situation, like I said before. Strategy is just your way of giving people value that they can't get anywhere else. Do that and you win. Now, I'm just going to give you a few sort of very basic famous examples of this just to sort of show you it in action. If we look at Apple, how did Apple, back in the late 90s, Steve Jobs' heyday, how did they become Apple? How did they become so dominant? Well, basically, what they did is they did an unusual differentiated move. They blended art with technology. This was back in the days when obviously most computers were very nerdy, technical, grey box type things. And in doing that, they made computing accessible to a much broader group of people. So that is the value that they provided. IKEA, it's a similar story. They did this differentiated, unique action by forcing customers to build their own furniture with the flat pack innovation. And by doing this, they were able to make designer interiors affordable. For IKEA, you could have pretty furniture or you could have cheap furniture. After IKEA, you could have both. And Starbucks, they built a whole modern coffee culture by basically their innovation was letting you stay all day in their cafe with only one cup of coffee. They're not going to say to you, buy more or get out. And that enabled them to create what they called this third space between work and home, more productive and on it than being at home, but more chilled out and relaxed than being in work. And now most coffee shops adhere to this model that Starbucks created. Now, if we look through this, these first things, these are the unique things, not unique now maybe, but like when they made their breakthroughs, these are the unique things that they did. And then this is the value that that unique thing generated. And this is why all of these businesses were able to dominate their categories and make insane amounts of profit. Together, that is unique value. Unique thing you do, value that it creates for the customer. That is the fundamental game of strategy. So really, all you need to do when you're doing this work is to just answer one question. And maybe you can answer this question right now. Most businesses can't. And so don't panic if you can't, because it's a very difficult question to answer. But this is the fundamental task. How can we give people something that they want, but that they can't get anywhere else? Let me tell you, every business on the planet manages to do half of this equation. There are most businesses out there, they nail the first half, but they lose the second half. They make something that people want, like they say, okay, I'm going to sell socks. And I know that people need socks. So therefore, tick, I've made something that people want. Okay, great. But unfortunately, I can get socks from loads of other places. So I lack leverage in that respect. Businesses who do this, and this will be most of you, I would think, these are the ones who suffer commodifications. These are the commodification. These are the ones who have to cut price to stimulate demand. And these are the ones who generally have to splurge on marketing, which is a lot of marketing is kind of like a desperate attempt to fake differentiation where no true differentiation exists. There's another category of business, which is a bit less common, but it's still quite common, who are people who they've actually managed to do something very unique. They say, hey, we are the only vegan dog food in the whole world. So they say, tick, we are unique, we are winning. But what these businesses suffer from is that they don't get the first part of the equation right. They miss the fact that the reason that there aren't other people doing what they're doing is because the market doesn't really want it. And this is an even worse problem than the other problem. These are the businesses who will probably have very confused customers who don't really know what they do, they don't really understand it, and they don't really know why they should want it. Ultimately, they've probably got a very small market. So yes, maybe vegan dog food, there are some people out there who would buy it, but it just doesn't have a big enough demand to make a very big business. And ultimately, these businesses probably fail because you can't hustle your way to a solution in this situation. But if you do both of these things together, then you're golden, then you're winning. So you can sort of take away this exercise for your business. So firstly, think about what is the value that you offer to people? What is the thing that people are paying for? Remember that value and product are not the same thing. Value is the value that people get from buying your product. That's ultimately what people are paying you for. Second, would your competitors acknowledge that only you offer this? Now, this is another way of asking, is this value unique? But the problem is, if I ask you, do you think this value is unique? I know what you're all going to do. You're all going to say, yes, absolutely, it's unique, whether that's true or not, because people just tend to do that. So the more intellectually honest way of dealing with this instead is to say, would your competitor, if they were in the room, agree that it's unique? It's only if you can pass that threshold that it's true. Otherwise, you get into this terrible scenario where you get like a restaurant saying, we make amazing food, and this is a completely unique to us, which everyone on the outside knows that it's nonsense if a restaurant claims that they are unique in making amazing food. But many restaurateurs will tell themselves that to sort of flatter themselves, and then they fall into a trap. And then finally, what is the core innovation that enables this unique value? Because look, you say that you're providing new value to the market. Well, if you're providing new value to the market, logically, that must mean that you are doing something unique. Because if you weren't doing something unique, how would it be physically possible to offer new value? It wouldn't. So again, this is a trap that people catch themselves in. I hear a lot of people saying, yes, Alex, we have this completely unique form of value that we're putting into our market. And I say, oh, really? So what exactly does the business do on a physical operational level that's unique that generates that? And then they can't tell me anything. And I'm like, well, it's not possible that you're generating new value without doing some sort of differentiated, innovative action. So again, this is another way that people they don't hold themselves to high enough account. So these are all interesting ways to think about your business and to think about the problem. So let's say that you aren't already sitting on some amazing killer strategy. So as most businesses typically aren't. How do we actually come up with one? Well, obviously, if this was easy, like I say, we'd all be millionaires. The issue is that these sort of ideas, they're kind of like a needle in a haystack, because we're talking about high demand, low supply ideas. Well, look, if there's high demand for something, then people obviously go out there and make a business about it. So very soon there's no low supply anymore. So it is hard to find this needle in a haystack kind of idea. But there is a technique by which we can do it. And it involves, first, we have to stop one behavior that all of us engage in, which feels very natural, but actually stops us from getting there. And then we have to start another behavior, which feels very unnatural, but is actually very, very useful. So first, the behavior that we need to stop, and that is this: stop trying to be the best. Okay? Stop trying to be better than your competitors. The issue with this concept of better is that better, when you think about it, is a synonym for the same. If you say X is better than Y, by definition, you are saying that X does the same thing that Y does, X offers the same thing that Y does, but it just does it a little bit more, let's say. So this is actually a direct statement of commodification. This is you saying, hey, look, we do the same thing as this other business. I mean, imagine, let's say that you've got a category of businesses, and those ones in the middle as 3 businesses, and they're all basically roughly offering the same thing, and they're all sort of fighting with each other over that same market territory. Then you've got another business out there who's in its own clear sort of blue ocean type space. So it's offering something that is fundamentally different. It's not better, it's not worse, it's just different. If that business wants to be better than those other businesses, by definition, it is going to have to match them, which means it's going to have to copy them, which means that over time, this is going to happen to it, and it's going to be sucked down into the competitive dogfight. That's clearly not something you want to happen to you. So you have to resist this urge to be better than your competitors. Otherwise, you are going to get sucked into the swamp of commodification. And you might say to me, hey, oh, fine, Alex, I get it. But look, the fact is we are better. And isn't the market going to reward us being better? And that is the problem. That is the trap. It will not. The market does not reward the best. When you have undifferentiated businesses operating in the same space, the winner is not the best one. The winner is the one either A, that is most famous, B, the one with the best contacts, or C, the one with the most money. Now, if you were like the Coca-Cola of your industry, then I will confess that you can probably muscle other people out and own the center ground of that category. But working on the assumption that you're not the Coca-Cola of your category, if you try and do these undifferentiated offers and occupy the same space as other people, these are the businesses that are going to kill you, even if you are supposedly better than them. And by the way, I question whether or not people are actually better than the other people in their category. A lot of that tends to be just sort of self-flattery. One good way of testing this is that when you write down what your business is offering, what is this unique value you're putting out there, you have to remove all value judgment words from that statement. Any words like the words on this page, they should not be anywhere near a strategy. Good, better, best, superior, great, etc., etc. Anytime you let a word like this creep in, you are actually kind of you're neutering the strategy, because none of these words have got any substance, right? All of these words are just they're value judgments. And it's not for you to make a value judgment. If you were saying that your business is, I don't know, pioneering, for sake of argument, don't tell me that it's pioneering. You have to actually say specifically, what is the business doing that is pioneering? And then there's no point in saying the word pioneering, because you're just there anyway. I saw this ad, and this isn't meant to be a strategy, but ironically, most strategies I see, they look something like this ad. And this ad is brilliant at skewering how stupid these value judgment words make our strategies. We are an innovative, forward-thinking organization that make cutting-edge telecommunication solutions and industry-leading equipment. As the ad points out, the only substance in that statement, the only thing that I can take to the bank from that, is we make telecommunications equipment. Everything else is hot air. It's pure hot air. So you have to remove all of the hot air from your strategy, from what you are trying to own in your market, and see what is left. And whatever is left, that is your real strategy. And what many businesses find is that you remove all that hot air, and what is left is nothing. What is left is a vacuum. And you're like, oh, what do you know? We're actually not doing anything like this example right here. So very, very loosely, rule of thumb, bad strategy is anything that sounds like we are the best X, whereas good strategy is going to feel a little bit more like we are the only X that offers Y. So that's a little leap that you can make there. And incidentally, you've got to be careful and don't, again, trick yourself by saying something like, we are the only restaurant that offers truly exceptional food, because you can see how that is just a variant of we are the best restaurant, or we're the restaurant with the best food, right? So it's a better strategy disguised as a differentiated strategy. So just be careful with that one. So that's the approach that doesn't work. What about the approach that does work? Well, here's how I want you to think about it instead. Instead of thinking about being the best, start trying to be the worst. It's actually the complete opposite is what is going to take you to where you need to get to. Sounds very illogical, sounds very weird, but let me explain. You see, what we're looking for here is fundamentally some form of innovation in our category, where we're doing something that no one else in our category is doing, and therefore we're providing value that no one else in our category is providing. Now, if there was some amazing idea, low-hanging fruit that we could just do, well, everyone would have done it already. Most categories now are quite mature, and there isn't just low-hanging fruit ideas to be had here. And that's why it's very, very hard to come up with a new original idea, because all your competitors are trying to do it too, and none of you can come up with anything good. So there's only one way that we can break that stalemate, and that is when we sacrifice something. Innovation can only emerge when something is sacrificed, because when you sacrifice something within your offer, within your worldview as a business, this creates a sort of vacuum into which new ideas can pour. So to just give you a very classic example of this principle, the Nintendo Switch is the world's #1 console. How did they do it? How did they beat PlayStation and Xbox? Well, let's think about that category. What is something that is very, very important in the games console category? Lots of things, but one of the main things is performance. You want to have the most powerful machine, the machine that's going to give the best gaming experience, the machine with the best graphics, fastest processing, blah, 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 blah. This is a fight that PlayStation and Xbox have been duking out for a long time. Now, and most people would say categorically, it is better to have a more powerful machine than a less powerful machine. It all makes sense. But Nintendo, they realized, well, look, we can't outperform on a pure technical level PlayStation and Xbox. So what do you do in that situation? Well, instead of saying, let's try and get as close to them as possible, and we'll be like, yeah, we can do it too. We're also really good at performance and trying to play that better game. Instead, what they did was they thought, well, actually, what if we actually make our console even less powerful? What if we are actually just miles off the power of those other consoles? What if we sacrifice power? Does this enable us to do anything that they can't do because the power side of the equation is stopping them? And of course it did. By sacrificing power, they were able to make a much smaller console. Because they were able to make a much smaller console, they could make it portable, which the Xbox and PlayStation are not. By making it portable, they could open it up to a whole new type of gaming, party gaming, which is what Nintendo basically own. And before you know it, Nintendo have this sort of blue ocean space in their category, whilst PlayStation and Xbox are taking chunks out of each other in a zero-sum game. That is how Nintendo became the world's #1 console, because they got into that anti-competitive space. And it all came from sacrificing something that their competitors were not prepared to sacrifice. Southwest Airlines, the greatest strategy case study of all time, arguably. They invented the low-cost airlines category. How did they do it? They didn't just think to themselves one day, gee, wouldn't it be really great if we just sold cheaper tickets? Because this is already a low-margin industry. You can't just lower the price of tickets. Otherwise, other people would have already done that. You had to first sacrifice something, which in their case is basically they sacrificed business travelers, the most lucrative part of that market. When they did that, it enabled them to standardize the type of planes that they were flying on, fly at inconvenient times, fly out of shitty airports, remove business class lounges, remove business class seats, remove food, blah, 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 blah. And then they unlocked the opportunity of creating the low-cost airline category. But it could only come first with that sacrifice. So what you really need to be in a position, every business needs to be in a position where they can say something like this. Listen, to be honest, if you're looking for such and such a type thing, then frankly, my competitors can serve you better. Because if you can't say that with an open heart, it means that your business is not sacrificing anything. It means that you're still trying to desperately cling on to every single piece of territory within your industry. And if you're not sacrificing anything, then I'm pretty confident that you're also not delivering anything new either. You're trying to be all things to all people, obviously, and then you're sort of nothing to nobody. So you need to choose where you are prepared to let things drop so that you can then pick up a form of innovation in another area. Now, the word sacrifice, like that doesn't always give the unlock for people. So you can think about, it's the same concept. You can think about it in these ways as well. You might also think, where do we disagree with the category? Is there anywhere where all of our competitors think X, but we actually fundamentally disagree and we think Y? That's another way of arriving at the same place. Another thing is, what is our secret? Do we have a secret that nobody else has thought of? If you had to finish the sentence, our secret is ... what would you put there? Again, you can't say something like, our secret is fabulous customer service, because what kind of bloody secret is that? Like, everyone knows that. It has to be something that can really live up to the word secret. Or another way of thinking it is, what gamble are we taking as a business? Are you actually doing anything that could be construed as a gamble? Most businesses are not gambling, but all strategy is fundamentally going to be a gamble. So I'm just giving you different language here that you can work around to try and light up the right parts of your brain that are going to start thinking in this strategic way. So here are some questions you can take away from this. Firstly, is there anything that you sacrifice, neglect, or disagree with that the category, the rest of your competitors, value? This is the pay dirt. This is where you're going to uncover your leverage. If you can find something like that, what does this sacrifice enable you uniquely to do? What is the innovation that this unlocks? And then number 3, if you were to do that innovation, if you were to do that new thing, why would that be good for customers? What forms of customer value arise from this sacrifice, arise from doing this new thing? This is basically the thought process that can take you through to a strong strategic position. Finally, we have secret 3. How are we doing for time? Yeah, I'm well over time, but hopefully you're all with me anyway. Secret 3, the one thing that really matters. Now, that was all kind of intellectual stuff. And yes, I don't think it's very complicated, but at the same time, you know, it is counterintuitive. It can be hard to get your head around. In the absence of all of that, really, ultimately, what it all comes down to is this number 3. And if there's only one thing that you can take away, then let it be this. I want to take you back to that dichotomy between your sort of analyst and your Logan Roy sort of rough and ready entrepreneur type. What is the fundamental difference between these two people? I would say it all comes down to the willingness to take bold, frankly, unsubstantiated action. Actually just bloody do something that will provoke a result and watch what happens. The issue that I see mostly is not necessarily that people don't do good quality thinking. The issue that I see mostly is that people, they want to 2x their business, let's say. That's a big ambition. If you're going to do that, and assuming that your business is not already on a very strong growth trajectory, you're going to have to actually change something quite radical and aggressive if you want to drive a result like that. But what people want to do is they want to do very timid, fiddling around the edge changes. And then they want that to drive 2, 5, 10x results. But that's just illogical, isn't it? It's just illogical. If you want to have big results, you're going to have to do something that is actually going to make a splash, negative or positive. And so you need to have your action be commensurate with the size of your ambition. Now, a great example of this, you've got to go and read this. Like, this is the best real world piece of strategy writing, which is publicly available, bar none. This is a blog post that Elon Musk wrote back in 2006, where he lays out, before the first Tesla was ever launched, where he lays out the strategy of Tesla. Just Google it and you can read it in your own time. The Tesla Motors master plan. But the point here is this. The bottom line of their strategy was, at that time, those cars at the top, those were the electric cars that were available on the market, because people thought that the electric car category was all about economy and city runarounds. For various reasons, very, very clever, but very simple reasons, Tesla thought otherwise. They thought that actually this is an incredibly expensive product because the technology is new. Because it's expensive, people don't want to buy a shit, lame car. If I'm spending a lot of money on a car, I want it to be cool. So instead of starting at the bottom and working our way up, we're going to start at the top and work our way down. Our first car is going to be a supercar. It's not going to be some city runaround. And so the first Tesla, the Roadster, that car at the bottom, that is what they put into the market instead. Now, obviously, this turned out to be a good idea, but never mind about that for a second. I'm just like, do you see how, like, this was a very clear, binary, aggressive, different move they made? This could have failed or it could have succeeded, but damn it, there's no fiddling around the edges here, right? This was a very coherent strategic move. If you want to make a big splash, you need to be able to put up a page like what I put up here, where you can say, well, look, we may be right, we may be wrong, but damn it, we are actually making a play here. We are actually making a move. And if you don't make a move like that, I can guarantee you nothing's going to happen, right? It's the only way to guarantee failure is to just fiddle around the edges. You need to make these binary sorts of choices. Now, I'm just going to show you one more video before we go that I think demonstrates this beautifully. Now, this video is meant to be a piss take of the brand Yeti. I don't know if you know it. It's this sort of premium cooler brand. And we're meant to watch this video and we're meant to think how stupid the brand of Yeti is. But I want you to watch this video and I want you to look out for all of the fantastic strategic moves that are happening in this video, which we're invited to think are stupid, but are actually super smart, and how ultimately it all comes down to what we are talking about. You're about to see world-class strategy in live action, I think.
Ugh! We need to sell more coolers. Any ideas?
How are we supposed to compete with a $30 cooler? Makes me want to gouge my eyes out.
Gouge? That's it. We're gonna take their $30 cooler and we're just gonna add a zero and gouge the customers.
Yes!
We're gonna jack the prices way up.
All the way up.
Wait, how are we going to justify the price increase?
We can make it more convenient.
Or we can make it less convenient. Less is more.
We'll make it hold less beer.
And make it super heavy.
Yeah, people love heavy stuff.
We can break their wallet and their back.
Oh! If it's filled with ice and beer and it's super heavy, no one's gonna be able to carry that.
You could just put wheels on it.
Are you out of your mind?
Go take your igloo for a walk, Tyler. Trying to do some work up here, all right?
Okay, we won't say that it's heavy. We'll say that it's durable.
Durable. Ruggedness. Outdoors. That'll be our brand.
Everything about this cooler will scream outdoors.
Outdoors!
I love that. We could do a forest green color.
We're gonna do a forest green color. Hey, we should do a forest green color.
We would never do forest green, Tyler.
Dude, they're gonna be white. I mean,
It's gonna be white and super heavy, and it can hold ice for a week.
Don't people just use coolers for backyard barbecues for like 3 hours?
Tyler, I swear.
Would you
I
just shut
Wait, actually, you might have a point. No one needs to hold ice for more than like 6 hours.
No. If it makes it sound more expensive, it's staying in.
It's staying in.
It's staying in.
It's staying in,
Yeah,
Tyler.
We don't have to listen to you, Tyler.
Okay, so if we're an outdoorsy brand, the people who will be buying it.
Frat kids and their rich parents. White coolers for white collars, baby. Yeah!
Yeah, yes, this is so good. But I think it's still missing that one thing, that it factor.
Oh, this brainwork's giving me a headache. Can't open this thing. It's childproof. Just bear with me for a second.
That's it. Bears, child-proof. Bear-proof!
Ah!
Bears, that's the key.
Just like insurance companies will sell fear.
Do you want a bear drinking all of your beer?
Not my beer.
Bear-proof!
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 I've never even seen a bear.
Overpriced, heavy, features nobody needs. That's our edge.
And we don't even have to stop at coolers. No. We could do this with any product.
Name the product.
Coffee mug.
$30.
Bottle opener.
$50.
Blanket.
$200.
Wait, you actually think we can sell a blanket for $200?
Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Put it on the board!
Yeah! All in a hard day's work, huh?
Do you need help?
Nope, just a hint. All in a hard day's work.
We got one thing left.
What's that?
We gotta come up with a name.
Ah!
Okay, so coolers are cold. So let's just start naming off cold stuff.
Okay, snow, ice, revenge, snowman,
So wait, snowman.
Prices are abominable.
Hey, shut up. But also good idea. Abominable snowman. Yeti! Yeti! Yeti!
Oh, sorry.
What do you think?
I think that even with all these features, no one's gonna pay $300 for a cooler.
Yeah, you're right. Now they will!
Just slap a sticker on it and they'll buy anything. Man, we're on a roll. Let's design a dog bowl.
Yep. $50!
So roll out the barrel and get the band brewing. Life's got you down, just keep her moving.
Oh, you betcha, yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully you could see it all going on there. And look, firstly, this is how strategic ideas are born, from this sort of like open line of inquiry like this, where you test things out and you explore whether or not they would be effective. They do not come as a sort of 1, 2, 3 process form of logical analysis. They just don't. Secondly, there were some great examples of flipping a weakness in there, of like actually doing something which the rest of the category would think was bad or stupid, but then actually saying, oh, it's actually good. So like, oh, it's not heavy, it's durable. You know, a nice way. It's a nice way of like turning a sacrifice into a strength. They ignore the better guy. You notice that the guy who's meant to be the voice of reason, he's just pushing them down this better approach. He's just pushing them towards commodification. So yes, they are correct. He is actually truly the stupid one. And ultimately, they actually do something. Like, is selling a cooler for $300? It may be a good idea, it may be a bad idea, but damn it, it is an idea. And you know that you're actually going to provoke some sort of market response with that. And that therefore makes it a legitimate strategic move and not just fiddling around the edges. Ultimately, courage is the key metric of strategy, not intelligence. That is the bottom line of the whole thing. So the one question for you from this is, based on your thinking, what is one move that you could make that may be good, may be bad, but for sure it would provoke a different result than what you're getting now? that is the sort of move that you need to seriously consider. So I'm just going to leave you with this little thing I call the strategy sketch. It's kind of like a little structure that I think ties up a lot of this thinking into one kind of neat little bow that you can play with. And it's sort of to write out your strategy, something like this. We are the only, and then just put in whatever the category is you're playing in. So we are the only dog food, for sake of argument. So just name your root category. That sacrifices, and then you put in whatever the convention of the category is that you are disagreeing with, that you're undermining, that you're sacrificing, which then enables us to, and then put in, okay, well, what can you do instead that's new because of this sacrifice? So then finally that we can offer consumers such and such a unique value. This is the basic sort of template put together there. So you can have a little play with that. And if you want to really kind of like understand this stuff and get under the skin of it, then I would obviously recommend my book, No Bullshit Strategy, which you can get from wherever you get your books, Audible, whatever. It's very, very short, and you can just plow through it, and then you'll basically be like, "Yep, okay, I get it." It's done pretty well. I mean, Procter and Gamble just bulk ordered 300 copies of this, so they really know their strategy. So I like to take that as a sort of positive signal for the book. And then, of course, clearly, if any of you want to work on this stuff with me, well, then you can email me, and that's always an option. But other than that, yeah, if you've got any questions, then happy to answer them, and I'll stop the share now.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Alex. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask him? No, you've obviously stunned everyone into silence. One person's already left the chat and said that they thought it was fascinating stuff. Can I ask you, Alex, what is your favorite strategy that you've seen out of the examples that you've provided? They're all fantastic, but is there any others that are just your favorite?
Yeah, let me see. One out of ones that I haven't talked about. The one that springs to mind is, oh yes, that's my favorite. Yeah, it's Ford.
Okay.
So Ford, obviously, like for a long time, they were seen as this sort of generic mid-market car brand that was like as boring a car brand as can be, and they didn't really stand for anything. The Fiesta, the Mondeo, the Focus, blah blah blah, all pretty like dull sort of cars, and those sort of mid-market brands have done very badly in the car world. So Ford couldn't afford to sort of stay there forever because they're being gobbled up from underneath by the Asian brands and the Kias and whatever, and they're being pushed down from the top by BMW, Audi, and so on. So they had to actually make some sort of like clear move to sort of own the territory in the market. So very, very bravely, Ford have cancelled all of their ordinary cars, Focus, Fiesta, and stuff like that, and they are now just they're now only going to focus on basically what we could call kind of like American muscle type cars. So 4x4s, SUVs, commercial vehicles, things like the Bronco, things like the F-150, stuff like that. And they wouldn't put it this way, but they are basically focusing on being the macho car brand. And what I like about it is that, well, firstly, they've managed to turn a very boring brand into a very interesting brand, which is incredibly hard to do. But you never normally see such brave moves being made by such a big business. Businesses, when they reach that size, they're typically very timid and un-entrepreneurial. So I think it's amazing that what Ford are currently doing, and it's because they're really operating in a very entrepreneurial kind of startup-y fashion.
Cool. And what's the strategy that you've taken with your business that's really moved the needle?
Well, my strategy is fundamentally all a kind of democratization strategy where one of the ways that I'm very different than other kind of strategy houses, practitioners, whatever, is that I essentially like you. I guess if you were being critical about it and you were looking at it from a sacrifice point of view, I sacrifice rigor. Because what I'm presenting to you is a incredibly simplified variant of what you would hear from other people. But actually, we're talking fundamentally here about the 20% of strategy principles that drive 80% of the results. And it's like I said to you before, the great strategists of history were not professional strategists. I strongly believe, and therefore disagree with the rest of my category, I strongly believe that you actually do not need to get to a tighter level of analytic discipline than what we've talked about here, which then obviously powers my content and powers my book and all the rest of this stuff and blah, 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 blah. So there's a whole bunch of consequences of that, but that's kind of the nub of it.
Fab. Okay, cool. Is there any other questions from, there's someone's just popped.
Somebody said, is it wrong to say as a strategy, we are better because of so and so and so and so? Basically, I mean, it's hard. You do sort of, I hesitate without seeing the specifics. But broadly speaking, I would say yes, because you really need to think of it as like, you need to think of it in terms of like who is occupying what space in the market. And your entire goal is to have space that is all to yourself. Because if you're in that situation, then it's much easier to like, win the business and you can be a lot more profitable because you can sort of charge what you want because you're the only game in town. If you're saying we're better because of so and so and so and so, you're almost in a position, I think, of where you're kind of begging for business, where you're like, and you're asking the customer to just take it on faith that like, I know that this isn't what you said, but it's like, it almost comes across as if you're saying, well, no, we'll try really hard, we promise, and we've just got all the best people and blah, 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 blah. And it's just like so low leverage versus just being like, well, look, we sell X and we're the only people who sell X. And if you want it, then what are you going to do? You're going to have to buy from us. And if you don't want it, that's totally fine. That's totally fine too. So you can sort of see the difference in the strengths of the position. So I would take those things where you're saying so and so and so and so and so and so, and then I would ask, what is the unique value that those things generate, as opposed to just saying, well, they actually generate the exact same thing that everyone else does, frankly, but we think that we do it better. So even if it's, do they lower the cost for the customer? Do they increase the speed for the customer? Do they apply more to one particular type of customer than to another particular type of customer? And then you can focus on that type of customer. You see, these are all ways of actually trying to like narrow down why these things have got some degree of competitive advantage within them.
Fab.
Would you approach strategy for different service type of businesses? The short answer is no. The longer answer is that it is definitely harder for service type businesses because they're fundamentally chameleonic, because they just sort of like, they basically say to clients, we can be whatever you want us to be, whatever your brief is, yeah, we can handle that. Whereas if you were a product business, you're selling this one hard, discrete thing, and you just sort of like it, you can't vary it. If you're selling a car, you can't have it be a different car for every customer because the car is what it is. So you're forced to make some decisions. Whereas then service businesses, they get very sloppy and they'll be like, well, what do you want? We can probably help you with that. So it is harder in that respect. So what you want to do really is to try and start productifying your service as much as possible so that number one, it becomes more easy to differentiate and it becomes sort of more rigid. And then also the more you productify it, the more it becomes scalable and the more profitable it becomes. Because if it's just you going out there and giving your time to people, then yes, obviously in that scenario, the truth is that you could spend your time doing anything. But if you actually had a very rigid, repeatable version of your service, that would actually save you a lot of time, be a lot more profitable. You could roll it out to a lot more customers, but it would also become more rigid and you wouldn't be able to remake it for every client who comes along. So that's how I would encourage a service business to think. Is it wrong to compare myself to the version of me from 2016, 2018, 2023 and feel that, oh, no. Yeah, so That is a good use of the term better, right? The only place where I don't want the word better to show up is in comparison with your competitors. There are all sorts of other scenarios where the word better and the ambition to be better is very, very good. So yes, it's not like in all cases the word better is bad. Like if you say, wow, we really do need, like we got bad customer service scores last year, we need to make our customer service better. There's nothing wrong with that. That's good. But that's not strategy. Okay. That's just like, operational best practice or whatever, which is very, very important. It's just a different thing. And don't kid yourself into thinking that's going to like sort of 10x your business or whatever, but you should be doing it 100%. So it's fine to do what you are saying is what I'm saying.
Perfect. And any other questions from anyone else? No? Fair enough. No worries. Alex, if you can just hang on the line 1 minute longer when others pop off, that would be great, if that's okay.
Cool. Yeah, no problems.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much, Alex, again, and thanks for everyone for attending. We'll sort out the recording so those that have missed some of the session can hopefully watch at a more convenient time. Thanks so much.
Cheers,
Bye.
guys. Bye.